My name is Jason, and this is Just Watches. Okay, today we have a Damasco that was very generously lent into the channel by a friend. This is the ETA-powered DS30. Now, I've wanted to review one of these for a very long time, and I was not disappointed. However, before we get to the review, if you're enjoying the contents of this channel, I invite you to subscribe, and if you're enjoying the contents of this individual video, please give it a thumbs up. Thank you so much. This watch comes in a number of colorways and is available on the Damasco website for probably around $1,000 once you exclude VAT, but consider that you might pay an import fee. You can also get them from Long Island Watch and Watchman for around $1,000 as well. So the case is 39 millimeters in diameter, 47.5 millimeters lug to lug. It's very, very thin. It's only 10 millimeters thick, and then it has a 20 millimeter lug width opening. Now on the supplied Hirsch strap, it weighs in at 73 grams. Now this case is made of surface hardened submarine steel that's completely bead blasted. The steel has a slightly darker hue that's a bit reminiscent of titanium. Now this case should be very scratch and corrosion resistant, and indeed, despite being well used, I can't find a single mark on it. The crown guards extend out to partially envelop the crown, and then the lugs have a nice turn down and are drilled for easier strap changes. Finally, the case also provides magnetic resistance of 4800 AM. This particular model was supplied with the Hirsch Robbie, which is an excellent strap. Starting at 20 millimeters, it tapers down to 17 millimeters. It's very tough overall, with orange stitching and orange backing that nicely complements the second hand. The backing makes me think of the alien from the movie Alien, but also those ridges help keep the strap cool on your wrist. The pin and buckle are signed with the Damasco D and share the same finishing and I assume metal of the case. Then you have a fixed and a floating keeper. Now interestingly, this one doesn't have quick release pins, but I think some of the newer ones do. The solid screw-in case back is going to help with 200 meters of water resistance. It's also going to help with that 4800 AM of magnetic resistance. Then you have information in both German and English printed around the edge, along with Made in Germany. Now, Damasco does do a version of this watch with an in-house movement, but the one we have here today is the ETA version with the 2824-2. I also think Damasco uses the slightly higher grade, the Elaboré. This is an automatic hacking hand-winding 28,800 vibration per hour movement with a 38-hour power reserve and a stated accuracy of plus or minus 7 to 20 seconds a day. Finally, it has a quick set date. Now, as you can see on the time grapher, this watch is running a very nice plus 2 seconds a day in the dial up position, and then plus 3 seconds a day in the crown up position. The 5.5 millimeter crown is signed with the Damasco D and nicely knurled. Now, despite being a bit smaller than I would say the average crown size of 6 millimeters, it has a large profile, so it's easy to grip despite the crown guards. Now, the crown positions on this watch are some of the most distinct and tactile I have ever experienced. There's absolutely no question if you have clicked the crown out to the first or second position, which really adds a feeling of overall quality to the watch. The crown also uses a clutch system, which decouples the crown from the winding mechanism when you are rethreading it, which makes it extremely easy to rethread. And then finally, Damasco has a self-lubricating system for the crown tube. The flat sapphire crystal is flush to the bezel. Now, Damasco does anti-reflective coating on both the inside and outside of the crystal, which really makes the crystal almost invisible. The downside is that you can damage the AR coating on the outside. It's very tough, but I don't think it's quite as tough as sapphire. So some people have the preference of not having it, and that is an option if you order one directly. You can request that they do not put AR coating on the outside of the crystal. The matte black dial is incredibly legible. There is no chapter ring, rather the edge of the dial has large rectangles for the hours with thinner dashes for the minutes. The 12 position has a large double index, and there is a crosshair extending from the cardinal positions to the center of the dial. Now there's minimal text, which I love. You have the Damasco D and Damasco at 12, and then just Made in Germany flanking the 6 o'clock position. Finally, the date resides at 3. Now the window has a nice beveled edge, and then the date wheel matches the dial perfectly. Overall, this dial is ultra legible and extremely clean. The sword style hour and minute hands are the same stark white as the indices and pop against the dial. And then the hand stack is black, which kind of gives the effect that the hands are just sort of floating above the dial, which I really like. The orange second hand is the only pop of color on the watch. Now, this watch comes with some other colors for the second hands, but I really don't think there's any beating this orange. I may be biased, it's my favorite color. And then all three hands are plenty long, and it's very easy to quickly and accurately ascertain the time with a quick glance at this watch. For the lume, you can see it's bright and responsive initially, but it doesn't quite have the staying power of the Seiko LumiBrite, as you can see here. And here it is on my 6 3/4 inch wrist. That 39mm size and sub 48mm lug to lug is going to make this friendly on a wide variety of wrist sizes. And then you can see that 10mm thinness keeps this watch svelte and comfortable on the wrist. So pros and cons, starting with the pros. Well, Worn & Wound did a great video on Damasko, which I recommend you watch. But essentially, Damasko is a small company whose mission was to create super high quality watches. They make many of the components, including the cases and in some models the movements in-house. They also do all of their own assembly. So all of this translates into a feeling of quality that is obvious when you handle this watch. From the hardened case to the confident crown positions, to the almost invisible crystal, and then 200 meters of water resistance, you have a rock solid tool piece that you could probably be happy with in perpetuity if you were not addicted to watches. So the number one con for me on this watch is that it doesn't come on a bracelet. And if you want to buy the bracelet, it costs a staggering $600, which is almost 2/3 of the cost of the watch itself. I'm sure the bracelet is awesome, but the two together become in a very expensive package that puts them into almost another price tier of watches altogether. And then second, the only other con is I think you're paying for a lot of cool technology and it is a high quality piece, but if you're just looking for a pilot style tool watch, this is kind of a lot to spend for this style of watch. As for comparables, I think it's impossible to mention Damasko without mentioning Sinn. Now, unfortunately, I haven't handled a Sinn yet, something I'm trying to remedy, but what I have noticed is that the prices on them have continuously been going up. So the Sinn 104 or 556, which I would say are both comparable options to this watch, are both about $400 more if you just get them on strap, but then interestingly are close to parity if you compare them both on bracelet. Now, for a less expensive option, I would check out the Atticus Icarus, which I have a review for on my channel. It has heavy Damasko and Sinn vibes without quite the same price. And then for even a bit less, you could go with something like Laco. Really, there's no shortage of toolish pilot style watches to choose from. So there you have it, the Damasko DS30. Now a tool watch like this honestly has never really stuck in my collection for very long, but I think I'm gonna have trouble sending this one back. What do you think of this watch? Let me know in the comments below. As always, if you're enjoying the contents of this channel, I invite you to subscribe, and if you like the contents of this individual video, please give it a thumbs up. That's all for this time. My name is Jason, and you have been watching Just Watches.